Hey Apex, my name is Angie May, and I own my own coaching company called Kairos Coaching, where I do a lot of one-on-one coaching and counseling, as well as leadership development and training with organizations and companies. And the main tool that I use is the Enneagram, what we're going to be talking about in this video. I'm really excited that you guys want to learn a little bit about the Enneagram. I'm going to keep it short and sweet and give you nuggets of each of the numbers, but I want to give you an introduction about the Enneagram and why it's useful for your personal and your professional life. I'm sure you guys have taken lots of different personality assessments over the years. You own your own company, you own your own franchise. I'm sure you've looked into and done quite a bit of development work, right? So without fail, I always get the question, what makes the Enneagram different than other personality assessments? So I do want to pinpoint that for you guys before we go into and jump into the Enneagram itself. One of the quotes that I use a lot is Myers-Briggs, which is a big personality assessment that a lot of people use, shows you how the world sees you. The Enneagram shows us how we see the world. So in essence, the Enneagram gives us an idea of how the lens by which we see and perceive the world, we see and perceive conflict, situations, things that we face, hard times, good times, all of those things. And it also shows us the motivation as to why we do some of the things that we do. In my career as a counselor and a coach, I have my master's in counseling, and without fail, one of the things that I always want to get down to with my clients is the why, the motivation. Why do you do what you do? And for you guys, you want to get down to the bottom of why a school wants to choose Apex, right? Why does this PTO president want to choose you guys? Why do you want them to choose you? And things like that. And so we want to be able to use this personality assessment to hopefully understand ourselves as well as those we're doing life with, whether that's at home, whether that's our coworkers, or whether that's people that we're coming in contact with that we're trying to sell our program to. It's important. Now, you're not going to know exactly what Enneagram type everybody is that you come in contact with. And that's okay. You're not supposed to. We don't use this tool to type people. But it does give us an awareness of maybe the lens by which some people see a situation through as we talk to them, as we get to know them. Are they abrasive? Are they overly accommodating? Are they overly peaceful and want to keep the peace? There are things that we can pick up on and maybe not type them, but at least pick up on to see how we can have a conversation with them, or how we can sell our program to them, or how we can work with them. And the list goes on and on. I tell people all the time, the Enneagram can be useful in so many areas. It can be useful in our marriages. It can be useful in our parenting, in our professional life and leadership. I use it a lot with EQ when we talk about emotional intelligence. And I use that in my PowerPoint that you'll see here in just a little bit. There's so many different areas that we can use the Enneagram. Why is this important? It's important because the Enneagram is 9 personalities, but in essence, what Ian Cron talks about in his book, The Road Back to You, is he says that it's 9 personalities and you are just one of them. So if you fail to see the other 8 in different situations, then you're at a drastic disadvantage. So for instance, if I am in a situation or a conflict with someone and I'm only willing to see that conflict or that situation through my own lens, and I'm unwilling to step outside of my lens, then I'm at a drastic disadvantage because I understand that we are going to see things differently in our culture. We see that right now going on in our culture. So what I want you to understand is that we look at the Enneagram kind of like 9 different colored lenses. So if I take a room, maybe the room that you guys are sitting in right now, and you put a red lens up against your eyes, you will see that room in red. If you put a blue lens, you'll see that room as a blue room, a green, a yellow, and so on and so on. The point is the room didn't change. It's just the color that you're looking through that changed. And that's a little bit what the Enneagram helps us to do. Now, let's look at each of the numbers. We are going to start with the 8 on the Enneagram because I do that because I talk about the triads when it comes to the Enneagram. And I'll allude to that in the very beginning of this little presentation, but I don't want to camp on that because I do want you to get as much information about each of the numbers as you possibly can. So I'm going to share my screen and my PowerPoint with you really quickly. All right, so the Enneagram is a model of 9 personality types, and that's just what I just said, or strategies for life. It describes how these strategies affect the way we maneuver in the world. Our strategy profoundly influences the way we think, feel, and behave, and describes our strengths and weaknesses. This is coming from a book that I've read called The Enneagram Connection, and how EQ has a lot to do with how we function in the world and how that can relate to the Enneagram and your personal Enneagram type. Ian Crone says there's 9 valid perspectives, and if you're unwilling to see the other 8 perspectives in life, then you are at a drastic disadvantage. The Road Back to You says the purpose of the Enneagram is to show us how we can release the paralyzing arthritic grip we've kept on old defeating ways of living so we can open ourselves to experiencing more interior freedom to become our best selves. Now, something that I'm going to go through with you with each number is, what does that number look like at its best? And what does that number look like at its worst? And then we're going to also look at, how do you get along with this certain number type? And as you sit there listening, it may cause you to chuckle because you may know somebody that is that number, or you might be that number. And it often makes some of my people chuckle a little bit when we go through that. We looked at the benefits: stronger marriages, parenting, leadership, self-awareness, understanding ourselves on a deeper level and others, and EQ. The interesting thing about the Enneagram is it really can show us when our defenses start to go up. And this is important, I believe, in the beginnings of understanding your type as well as the types of others. We all have 3 biological needs: security and survival, power and control, and love and affection, or esteem. And so what I have found, even in my own personal counseling career, is most people's defenses go up when one of these things is threatened. So one thing that I really work with my clients on is asking them, hey, when your defenses are going up, when you get frustrated with that coworker, when you get frustrated with that employee or your spouse or your child, what is being threatened in that situation? And I think it's an important question to ask for growth. The Enneagram is a little bit like our GPS system. It's a little bit like a rerouting system. So if I put a directional or an address in my phone, Siri is going to tell me how to get there. If I take a wrong turn, then what is Siri going to do? Inevitably, my phone is going to say rerouting, rerouting, rerouting. That's the cool thing about the Enneagram. It reroutes us. When we become so self-aware of our own ways of doing things and coping and dealing and stress and growth, we can reroute ourselves throughout life. I say this all the time. The Enneagram is different because we are not static people. We don't just all of a sudden arrive at a growth space in life and stay there. We don't just arrive at an unhealthy place in life and stay there. We are constantly moving and shaking about life depending on the situations and circumstances we find ourselves in. So if we use this system as kind of our internal GPS, it really can be a helpful tool and self-awareness tool to reroute us in those times. Again, there's 9 types, and that's what we'll look at here in the next few minutes. And they're all of equal types. 9 has no greater value than 1. They are just that not numbers on the system. There is healthy, average, and unhealthy. And if you want to take a screenshot of this, you can. There is healthy, average, and unhealthy within each number. And I would be happy to send you guys that through Kim Fried or anybody so that you can know what your healthy, average, and unhealthy looks like. I use this tool often with my clients so that they can use it as a self-awareness tool of when they're camping in that average and how they tend to slide down into that unhealthy at times when stress kind of hits. The triads is what I was talking to you about just a couple of minutes ago. I won't go in depth here, but you will hear this term, the triads. There's the gut triad, the heart triad, and the head triad. The gut triad is that instinctive center. Their emotional struggle is anger, and their desire is to have justice. It looks differently for 8, 9s, and 1s, but that is the core for each of those 3 numbers. Now, the 2s, 3s, and 4s, they're the emotional triad. They're the feelers. They're the feeling center or the heart triad. Their emotional struggle is shame, and their desire is to have significance. And then you have your 5, 6s, and 7s, which are very cerebral. They're very in their head, and their emotional struggle is anxiety, and their desire, their deep desire, is to have security. Now, you're going to see that we're going to start with the 8 as we move through each of the numbers, and that's because I do my trainings based on the triads. So that's why you'll see us start with the 8, which is the challenger, right? So the protective challenger, at their best, they're compassionate, inspiring, resilient, loyal, energetic, direct, empowering, protective, and self-confident. They are really some of the most energized humans on the planet. At their worst, though, they can be loud, they can be vengeful, excessive, controlling, rebellious, insensitive, domineering, self-centered, and skeptical. And their focus of attention tends to be taking charge, gaining power, and overcoming injustice. The thing about 8s is they don't necessarily have to be in control. They just don't want to be controlled. I won't read all of these off to you just so that we can save time, but I do want you to understand each number's strengths and challenges when it comes to emotional intelligence, because I truly believe EQ is highly important when it comes to success. The strengths of the 8 are self-confidence, resiliency, trustworthiness, achievement, drive. And the challenges that they have often are empathy, self-control, communication, and cooperation. How to get along with an 8. They want you to stand up for yourself and for them. Be confident, strong, and direct, because they are. Notice that I'm tender and have a vulnerable side behind my strong exterior, and acknowledge the contribution that I make, but don't flatter me. They don't like that. I often speak in direct and in assertive ways. Please don't automatically assume it's a personal attack on you. They don't always know how to speak around things. They are often very direct. So sometimes we just have to take it with a grain of salt. What about nines? The peaceful mediator. The nines want to have peace more than anything else. So that is going to be their focus of attention. At their best, they're pleasant, they're peaceful, they're generous, they're patient, they're accepting, diplomatic, open-minded, empathetic. And at their worst, they can be spaced out, forgetful, stubborn, obsessive, resigned, passive-aggressive, judgmental, and unassertive. What is their focus of attention? Their focus of attention is other people's preferences, so they can be people pleasers, the inessentials, and the unimportant. They want to keep the peace, so they will sweep things under the carpet if they have to in order to keep the peace. Their strengths in EQ and their challenges are going to be, their strengths are going to be trustworthiness, cooperation, optimism, and empathy. And their challenges are going to be adaptability, self-confidence, self-awareness, and conflict management. How to get along with a peaceful mediator. Be patient with them and don't rush them. Tell them that their presence matters. That's really important for them, is just to know that they matter and that they're needed. Listen to me until I am finished talking. I enjoy discussion, but dislike confrontation. I tend to focus on others to make the time, so take the time to really focus on me. Ones are the last number in the gut triad, the moral perfectionist. At their best, they're ethical, reliable, productive, wise, idealistic, conscientious, honest, orderly, and self-disciplined. At their worst, they can be judgmental, inflexible, dogmatic, critical, uptight, controlling, anxious, and jealous. Their focus of attention is what is wrong and needs fixing. They are constantly focused in on what is wrong. So they see things in very black and white. There's not a lot of gray for the moral perfectionist. The moral perfectionist EQ summary. Their strengths are self-control, trustworthiness, resiliency, and achievement drive. And their challenges are self-awareness, empathy, optimism, and adaptability. How to get along with a one. Make sure you take your share of the responsibility, so I don't have to end up with all the work. This is really important in a work environment for people that work with the one to know. I am very hard on myself, so reassure me often and tell me that I'm doing a good job. They have a very, very loud inner critic. So if you work with a one and feel like they're pointing the finger at you a lot, or they're being hard on you, just know they're equally hard, if not harder, on themselves. Tell them when you value their advice. Be as fair and compassionate as they are. And first listen to their worries and concerns, then help them to lighten up and have fun. 2, the supportive advisor or the helper. You'll hear them be called the helper also. At their best, they're loving, compassionate, adaptable, nurturing, generous, supportive, hospitable. And at their worst, they can be very intrusive. They can be martyr-like, indirect, passive-aggressive, manipulative, possessive, flattery, needy, and overly accommodating. They often do not know how to take care of themselves because their focus is always on taking care of someone else. Focus of attention is others' needs and the desire to be appreciated. So 2s, like the 9s, can often fall into that people-pleasing mentality, and it drains them often. So when a 2 is working and functioning out of an empty cup, they can become very passive-aggressive and very almost like a little bit of a bulldozer. Their EQ strengths are empathy, optimism, cooperation, and communication. Their challenges are self-awareness, self-control, self-confidence, and achievement drive. Twos really want to know that they're wanted and loved and cared for just for being them, not for what they do, which is hard for them to accept. How to get along with that helper. Tell them specifically what you appreciate about them. Enjoy sharing fun times with them. Take a real interest in their problems, even though they probably will try to shift it back to you, but know that they want to be asked how they're doing or what's going on in their world. Let them know that they are special and important. Tell them what you love about them. And then if you have conflict with them or you need to share something that needs to be fixed, I call this the sandwich method. It's really important with the twos. Sandwich that conflictual thing or that thing that needs to be improved upon, sandwich it with two positives. I know you guys have probably heard that often before, but a lot of numbers, you don't have to do that. They want it direct and to the point. Eights, fives, they want it just as is. Twos aren't like that. They want to know what they're doing good. Now tell me what I need to improve on, and then let's end the conversation with something good. Threes, the successful achiever. At their best, they're optimistic, self-affirming, industrious, efficient, self-propelled, energetic, goal-oriented, and a team builder. At their worst, they can be deceptive, self-promoting, pretentious, vain, superficial, exploitative, overly competitive. And their focus of attention is tasks, roles, and results. And the thing that I want you guys to understand about the 1, 2, and 3 is all three of those numbers are very image conscious. So if you're asking yourself, and maybe you're in limbo of what your number is, then you need to know that for the 1, 2, and 3, they're very worried about their image. The 1 is worried that they're being seen as right and good. Twos want to be seen as being the helper and always the person, the go-to person. And the 3 wants to be seen as successful. That's really important to all three of those numbers. Their strengths, the 3's strengths is self-confidence, adaptability, resiliency, achievement drive. And their challenges are cooperation, empathy, trustworthiness, and conflict management. How to get along with a 3. Tell them what you like, that you like being around them. Tell them you're proud of their accomplishments. That kind of boosts them up. Don't interrupt them while they are working. It feels a little disrespectful for a 3 for you to interrupt them when they're in their zone. Okay, so if you know they're working, they have their door shut, it's really important. Know that in advance. Give me honest but not unduly critical or judgmental feedback, and then help them to keep their surroundings peaceful and harmonious so that they can get the tasks done that they need to get done. The 4s. Now, the 2s, 3s, and 4s, remember we are in the heart triad, which the 2s, 3s, and 4s are your feelers, so they feel the emotions more than other numbers. 4s are extremely feelers. They're extreme feelers. They feel all the things. At their best, they're authentic and warm, compassionate, introspective, expressive, creative, supportive, and refined. At their worst, they can be withdrawn, exaggerated moods, depressed, self-pitying, moralistic, self-absorbed, stubborn, and possessive. Their focus of attention is the new and different and what's missing. 4s often walk around the world feeling like something inside of them is missing and kind of looking for it. 4s might jump from job to job, wanting that fulfillment. They might jump from relationship to relationship, wanting that fulfillment. It's a sense that best is absent. So they're kind of always looking for that. Their EQ strengths are self-awareness, trustworthiness, empathy, and communication. And their challenges are self-confidence, optimism, adaptability, and achievement drive. How to get along with a 4. Give them plenty of compliments. They mean a great deal. Be supportive by helping them to love themselves and see their significant value. Respect their unique abilities and their good intuition and vision. They really are visionary. They may not always want to be cheered up. Oftentimes they enjoy sitting in their melancholy mood. And then don't tell them they're being too sensitive or overreacting. That feels like an insult to them. 5s, the thinkers. At their best, they can be very analytical. Now we're starting the head triad here. So we're into the 5, 6s, and 7s, which are very cerebral or in their head, and which is why they often struggle with anxiety. At their best, they're analytical, persevering, sensitive, wise, objective, perceptive, and curious. And at their worst, they're intellectually arrogant. They're very studious. They can be stingy, stubborn, distant, critical of others, unassertive, and cynical. Their focus of attention is observing and understanding the world and what others want from them. So oftentimes with 5s, I like to always clarify the stingy part of at their worst. They often hold on to their resources, whether that's emotional, whether that's financial, whether that is resourceful, whatever it is, they often hold on in fear that they'll run out. So they can cut things off fairly easily, especially in their unhealth. Their EQ strengths are self-control, trustworthiness, resiliency, and achievement drive. And their challenges can often be communication, conflict management, cooperation, and empathy. How to get along with that thinker. Be independent and not clingy. They don't like to be invaded. So they like to have their space. So they're those people that kind of like to keep people, especially acquaintances, kind of at arm's length. Give them their space. Speak in a brief and straightforward manner. I need a lot of alone time to process my feelings and thoughts. I don't like surprises, intrusions on my privacy, too many emotions, needy people, and obligations. So if they feel like things are getting overwhelming, they can often cut off, whether emotionally or physically or things like that. The 6 often, also in the head triad, their struggle is anxiety, more so than any other number on the Enneagram. At their best, they're loyal, likable, prepared, trustworthy, compassionate, witty, practical, supportive, and responsible. At their worst, they're very hypervigilant. So they're often sitting on the edge of their seat asking, what if, what if, what if? Dependent, unpredictable, judgmental, paranoid, defensive, rigid, self-defeating, and self-doubting. Now, I always like to clarify with the 6s because they're very anxiety-driven. They can be anxiety-driven about everything, just everything in life, or their anxiety can be very compartmentalized. So it can have very compartmentalized anxiety. So maybe this 6 is worried and anxious about everything, and another 6 may just be worried and anxious about certain things in their life or certain spaces in their life. It's different. We're all different. So we do have to take these things and make them personal, make them ours. Focus of attention is the bad news and the threats, hazards, and difficulties. They often hyper-focus on the negative. Their strengths in EQ is cooperation, trustworthiness, resiliency, and self-control. And their challenges are optimism, adaptability, self-confidence, and conflict management. how to get along with the loyal guardian. And you also need to know about the sixes. They are loyal to the core. So they also expect that same loyalty from you. And it's really important that they feel that security with you. Be direct and clear with me. Listen to me carefully. Please don't judge me for my anxiety. Reassure me that everything will be okay. Laugh and make jokes with me. Tell me and show me that you support me, and acknowledge that I'm loyal, responsible, and supportive. The 7 is the last one that we'll talk about in depth. And then I want to go through and tell you a couple of things that I want you to think about if you're between numbers and don't know your numbers, because obviously we didn't get to go through every little detail about all the different numbers. But the 7, the entertaining optimist, or the enthusiast, you might often hear them called, at their best, they're fun-loving, spontaneous, imaginative, productive, enthusiastic, quick, confident, and charming, and curious. At their worst, they can be self-focused, impulsive, escapist, because they don't like to sit in their pain. So if something gets too uncomfortable or too painful, they'll want to escape it. They'll want to pretend like it doesn't exist. Rebellious, distracted, superficial, manic even at times, and self-destructive. And they can often be restless. Their focused attention is good news and a pleasant future and the positive in all things. They just want to focus on the fun and the good, and the bad and the hard is really difficult for them. Their strengths are optimism, adaptability, communication, and achievement drive. And their challenges are self-control, trustworthiness, conflict management, and self-awareness. Let's talk about how to get along with those 7s. Give me companionship, affection, and freedom. Engage with me in stimulating conversation and laughter. They love, love, love a good time. Listen to my stories and grand visions. They are like 4s. They're big visionaries. They just need people around them to bring about that vision. They're not always really good at the X's and O's or the A, B, C, D process. Listen to my stories and grand visions. Accept me the way that I am. I don't like to be told what to do or to be restricted. They don't like to feel like you're restricting their fun or their good time. And then be enthusiastic with them. Know and learn how to have fun with them. Leaders. My pastor says that leadership is influence and we all have influence. So my guess is that you understand that anytime you're meeting with a school board, a PTO, or anything like that, you understand that you're meeting with leaders. So while some of these things may not feel like they're applicable to meeting with that school or that principal or that PTO president, this can be applied to that simply because they are leaders, and understanding what type of leader they are will help you know how to communicate with them. This can also help if you're a leader within Apex and you are leading a group of people. So I want you to understand each of these in each of the numbers. Now, I'm not going to read off all of these for lack of some time, but I want you to be able to read this yourself, the moral perfectionist as a leader. And then I want to go through some do's and don'ts of each of the numbers with the leadership types. These leaders will get the job done. They often have a hard time delegating. So if you're a 1, understand they have a hard time delegating. If you are communicating with a 1, know that in advance. Their strengths and challenges. Their strengths, they lead through example. They're very organized and responsible. But they can have a lot of challenges by being inflexible. So if you are meeting with a PTO or a principal that is a 1 and they see things in very black and white, then they can come across as being very, very inflexible. So try to see where they're coming from. Try to see what their goal is for their school and how your program can meet that specific goal, because them seeing gray area is really hard for them. And then do's and don'ts for the perfectionist. Leverage a one's remarkable talent for quickly spotting mistakes, and then one's value clarity. And then the don'ts: don't allow a one to put off starting or completing in fear that they won't do it perfectly, because they are perfectionists. They will also want to go back and redo another person's work if it wasn't done to their perfection. Try to limit their ability to do that. The two, these leaders can get caught up in being too helpful at times, oftentimes not getting their own work done because they're helping out with other people. So just be aware of that and what kind of leader they are, because I believe every number on the Enneagram is truly a leader. Their strengths: they lead through motivation. They're very supportive and resourceful. And their challenges: they can be overly relationship focused. So they can spend too much time on the relationship part and not enough time on the productivity part. The do's and don'ts: leverage a two's highly developed interpersonal skills. This is important in the business that you guys are in, is interpersonal skills. And so leverage that with them. Allow those twos to go build relationships in your communities. They're really good at that. Twos have difficulty saying no, so that is a problem for them. Don't take advantage of them, right? So don't always send them out if their glass is empty. Help them to refill that glass. Don't harshly criticize or publicly embarrass them. That's hard for a two. The three achiever: they are very driven, so you don't have to do a whole lot to light a fire under them. They're very goal oriented, so that's not hard for them. What is hard for them is the possibility of failure. So they just need to be encouraged in that if you fall, get up, try again. And that's really important for a three. Their strengths: they lead with very clear goals. They're very focused. They're very entrepreneurial. Their challenges are that they can be too competitive, even with their coworkers. So keep a lookout on that. They can be abrupt when stressed, impatient with lengthy conversations, and they can be workaholics. So make sure they're taking care of themselves. Do's and don'ts: threes want to win. Set clear performance targets and success measurements. That's important for a three. They need to know when they reach that next benchmark. Offer rewards, bonuses, and advancement. Don't allow threes to cut corners to get there first. That's really, really important. Make them do the job right, even if that means they don't get it done as the first person getting it done. Don't let threes run over coworkers. This is easy for them. They don't always mean to. They just do it in the achievement drive. Fours can be very emotional, but they're very visionary. So just understand, if you're working with a four or you have a four that you're communicating with, they have grandiose visions. So take those visions with a grain of salt, but understand they need people around them to carry those visions out. They want to feel like their visions are unique and productive and can be utilized within your organization. Their strengths: they're very values-based vision. They're very creative and inspiring, very compassionate, and personal connectedness. Their challenges: they're often too intense or moody. They can be kind of all over the place with their emotions at times. They overemphasize feelings often. So sometimes they don't see the reality of things. They're seeing and viewing things through their emotions. They can be oversensitive and often withdraw. So the do's and don'ts with a four: let fours express their creativity. That's really important. Give them room for that. Make sure fours know you understand and respect their unique perspective. Encourage fours to balance their emotional depth. That's really important for them to have balance in emotional and reality. Don't minimize a four's feelings or tell them to cheer up. Let them just work through it. Avoid criticizing a four by negatively comparing their work to someone else. That can be a hard hit for a four. The 5 is the thinker. These leaders often appear detached from the team. They often come across as, I've got this, I've got it all together kind of thing, or just let me do it. And they can detach themselves from the team. They're not always team players. So pull them in, let them engage, but also give them their space. Their strengths and challenges, they lead through research and planning. So if you have a research project, give it to that 5. They're very good at that. They're very objective and they have great expertise. Their challenges are often that they're detached. They can become remote or aloof, overly independent at times, and very, very cerebral. So they have a hard time attaching to their emotions or even expressing their emotions. The do's and don'ts, give 5s a project. Tell them when it's due and they will get it done. They love that. They love to be able to gather what they need to do and then take it to their cubicle or their office and do it. They love that. 5s need predictability. They don't like surprises. And then don't ask a 5 to spontaneously give a presentation. Give them time. Let them know what's coming down the pike. 5s value privacy and uninterrupted work time. Don't make them work in open spaces. If they can have their own private space, allow that. The 6, these leaders are the glue that holds the team together. They're really going to be the leaders that kind of see the landscape of the possible problems with maybe something that you're trying to implement within your organization. Hear them out, listen to them. Always in business, you're going to have to take risks, but hear the 6 out and hear out their concerns, because they are the ones that kind of see the landscape of the possible problems that can come down the pike. Their strengths are collaboration, creatively problem solving, risk assessment, loyal and perseveres, but they can also be too weary of and too cautious, too compliant or too defiant, so they can go either way, and projects feelings and thoughts onto maybe their coworkers or even in their personal life. With 6s, you want to listen patiently when 6s ask questions or have concern. Let them know that you're hearing them out. Be transparent, treat people fairly, and deliver on your promise. If you say you're going to do something for a 6, do it. Don't ignore 6s when they point out flaws in a plan. Every leader needs a devil's advocate, every company, every business. Don't let 6s slip so far into the what if. Don't let them slip so far into the what if of a situation that they don't take chances. The 7s are big visionaries. They're going to have grandiose visions, but they're going to need someone and people to come around them to help them carry those visions out. Their strengths are innovation. They're very high energy. They're an idea generator often. They're very enthusiastic and curious, and they're very engaged. Their challenges can be their impulsive nature. They avoid difficult issues. They rationalize often, and they lack thorough follow through and follow up often. Give talented 7s a long leash because they let them use their creativity. Give them a long leash. Don't restrict them if at all possible. Sevens are visionaries, take advantage of their ability to synthesize information, spot unseen patterns, and connect the dots inside complex situations. Don't let optimistic sevens downplay or wallpaper over problems or failures, because they will if you allow them to. They don't really like to deal or cope with those situations. Sevens are distractible. Hold their feet to the fire until they complete a job. So that can often be hard because everybody has their own tasks that need to be done, but oftentimes sevens have to be reeled in and grounded. The challenger can often be bullying in their leadership style. So they don't mean to be, but they're very direct and to the point. They do not give the sandwich method. That's a learned thing for an 8. They don't often give any fluff. They're very direct, straight to the point when it comes to what needs to be done or needs to go down. Their strengths are strategic vision. They understand influence networks. They're honest, bold, and they take action. I mean, they are a bulldozer. They will go after it. Their challenges are controlling and demanding. They get agitated with slow pace, so they like to get it done, and they get highly overextended. They'll take on more than they can actually complete. The do's and don'ts, 8s like to test authority. So if you are over an 8 or you're leading an 8, just know that. Set good limits, set good boundaries for them, and let them know that this is how things are. Always tell 8s the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They want all of it. Be very straightforward with them. 8s respect strong leaders, don't waffle or waver. So if they're being led by someone, they want you to be strong and they want you to be assertive. Don't let 8s take action too quickly without considering the consequences, because they will. They don't always think through the dynamics. And then lastly, the 9, the peaceful mediator. They lead through a desire to have peace. So oftentimes leadership in the conventional term is hard for them, although they really can be dynamic leaders. They know how to problem solve in their health, and they know how to get things done in their health. Their strengths are diplomacy. They are truly the ones on the Enneagram that are the most inclusive and are able to see the viewpoints of most numbers on the Enneagram, which is awesome. They're awesome at that. Consensus, inclusive, patient, respects others, and consistent. They're unassertive. They avoid conflict. They can be overly accommodating, indecisive, and oftentimes have low energy if there's too much conflict going on. The do's for the peacemaker is establish clear expectation for them. So if you're leading a 9, make sure that you give them clear expectation. Encourage 9s to express their personal opinions, because they have a hard time doing that. So in a staff meeting, ask that 9 what their opinion is. That's very important for them. Don't let 9s sell themselves short. Build them up. Make sure they know that their opinion matters. 9s need time to process, so don't always make them respond immediately. 5s are kind of the same way. They need time to process. They are processors. So that is a little bit of the Enneagram. And what I want you to gain from this is that you can use this tool both personally and professionally. Now, if you are in between and you don't know quite what your number is, then I'm going to be sending you a document, and it's going to be just a tool that you can use by looking at 2 different things with all 9 types. And that is this: the core fear and the core desire. So if those two things don't resonate with you with a number that you scored high on the test or the assessment, then I would venture to say that might not be your number. If you have any questions about that, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. Now, there are other parts of the Enneagram that we didn't get to go into, such as the wings, which are on either side of your number. So for me, I'm a 4. So my wings are the 5 and the 3. That gives layer and depth to everybody's number, is their wings. The other piece that we really didn't go into is the lines and arrows. Where does each number go in stress, and where does each number go in growth? This can also be an awesome self-awareness tool for when you're experiencing stress in life. It can show you how you're responding and acting in that stress. If you have any questions about those things or want to learn more about those pieces of your number, then please feel free to reach out. You can contact me at Angie at Kairos Coaching, Kairoskoaching.com, or you can visit my website at www.kairoscoaching.com. I hope this is helpful for you. I hope this gives you a little bit of insight into the Enneagram and how you can use it to know yourself and others on a deeper level. Thanks so much.